The reasons to get divorced, that's going to be so different for each individual, for each couple. But I do want to hit on some thematic elements. And I'll start at the most obvious. Do you feel safe? Physically safe, emotionally safe? And if the answer is no, I mean, that's something to think about. Is there a opportunity? Is there a light at the end of the tunnel? If it's just emotional safety, if it's arguments, if it's verbal, if you're not physically safe, like you need to get out. I'm not law enforcement. I'm not a marriage counselor, but hey, for just somebody walking around, if you don't feel safe, you need to get out. And that's a reason to get divorced. A more complex discussion, I think, is, do I have the opportunity to serve my family, to serve my community, separate from my partner? Can I be a better father? Can I be a better parent apart from this person? Are we punishing our kids by staying together? Are we setting a bad example for our kids by staying together? Are we teaching our children to tolerate something that they should never tolerate by staying with our partner? I think that's something that we talk about when we talk about reasons to get divorced. But ultimately, it's something in your gut. It's something in your head and your heart. One of the discussions I have with our potential clients, it's, hey, have you made the decision? Have you decided I am getting divorced? Or do we just have some issues out there that we need to discuss and we need to talk about? Well, are we okay with this being the same or worse 5 years from now? Are we okay with this being the same or worse 10 years from now? And if the answer is no, we've got to start identifying solutions, and we've got to start measuring progress. As cold as that sounds, like, how do we measure progress? How do we measure effort? How do we measure improvement? And at some point, you've got to draw the line somewhere, because the line is getting drawn, right? Either the other side is drawing it further away from where you want to be, or you're drawing it in a direction where you want to take it. So the standard is being set, the line is being drawn. And if you don't decide where it is, the other side will. So consider that when you are considering a divorce from your partner. There are reasons not to get divorced. And this isn't legal advice. This is like human discussion here. I mean, I'm not trying to teach anybody anything. It's just, maybe you still love the other side. Maybe you want to make it work. Maybe you want to figure it out. Maybe things are kind of okay and you just don't want your kids to be in a situation where they're missing one parent or the other. Maybe, as we've discussed separately, there's not some big net benefit for separating, and there's not some big missed opportunity to grow into who we want to be or need to be. Maybe we're not setting a bad example for our kids. Maybe we just think the grass is greener on the other side. That's an opportunity to explore that. I'm not saying do nothing. I mean, you don't want to settle for that in your life. You don't want to be roommates with your partner. But if you still love somebody and you're not putting yourself or your children in danger, maybe there's an opportunity to explore separation, explore other options, explore counseling. And if you explore other options, get clear on your criteria. Like I've said before, how will this look if it's working? How will we determine if this is working? And where will we draw the line? So there are excellent reasons to not get divorced, and they're valid and they're worthy of consideration. But I would say, even then, if you're already this far thinking about divorce, considering divorce, get clear on the criteria that you'll be using to make an effective short-term and long-term decision here. You don't want to just like post facto, like rationalize something. Because I mean, if you want to say, hey, I want our kids to have both parents, well, that's gonna subsume the whole discussion. But what is having both parents? Is that the best thing? If that is the best thing for your kids in the way that you and your partner are able to operate, maybe so. Maybe that's a reason not to get divorced. But if things are unsafe and if things are not getting any better and there's no light at the end of the tunnel, then I think you've got to make some decisions about what to do next. But yeah, hang in there. If you feel safe and you feel comfortable and optimistic, it's certainly an opportunity to hang in there and not pull the trigger on a divorce at this time. There are alternatives to a divorce. Now, legally speaking, there's something called an annulment, which is like a divorce, but it's like the marriage never happened, right? So there's not really like a necessarily a property division or anything involved in an annulment. It's just like poof. But there are only finite, unique circumstances in which you might qualify for an annulment. On the other end of that spectrum is kind of a legal separation. We've heard that term before. It's where we can, legally speaking, sort of draw a line as far as our marital property is concerned. We can separate some things, sign some deeds. Now we're not necessarily divorced, maybe for religious purposes, or maybe we want to get back together in the future, but we've divided some things and handled some things in such a way that everything is pretty much separated, including our residence, but we're still technically married. There might be good reasons to do that. Maybe health insurance, and I'm not an insurance expert, but that might be a reason to pursue and consider a legal separation rather than a more traditional divorce. So yeah, there are alternatives out there. So if there's something unique about your situation where an annulment or a legal separation, or maybe, gosh, just a break, like Ross and Rachel, take a break. That might not be a great thing to do for kids, but if it's two folks and you guys need some time away, hey man, you don't need a lawyer for that. But take the time you need to come back to the relationship as your full self. Make an effective long-term decision. So yeah, there are various alternatives, and I'm not the expert on all of them, but talk with a lawyer, talk with a counselor, and talk with your priest or spiritual advisor, and understand what your options are and which of those options is going to best support and serve who you are and what you need for yourself and your family. Before filing a divorce, know a couple of things that are going to help frame your thinking about this whole process. First, a significant portion of divorces end in reconciliation. I mean, we see sometimes that because somebody actually files for divorce, the other side didn't think they had it in them, right? So it's like, wow, okay, well, I thought I could just treat somebody however I wanted to and they were never going to do anything about it. But now that they've stood up for themselves and asserted themselves, like, hey, I'm willing to make some changes, and we see a reconciliation. And sometimes that works out. Know that reconciliation is an option. If that's not something you desire by any stretch, don't worry about it. But know this as well. Even if reconciliation is not something that you want or not something you would ever consider under your circumstances, the vast, vast, vast majority of cases resolve via some sort of agreement. Now, at Foxtrot, I like to say we don't settle cases. We reach agreements, but we're not going to settle when it comes to our legacy or our kids, or I just don't like the word settle. But most cases, statistically, really do end in some sort of agreement without having to go all the way through a trial. So when you're having a discussion with me or somebody like me about how much the case is going to cost, well, we're going to say, well, if it goes all the way through trial, you're looking at a range of X to Y. But frankly, most of our cases resolve through an agreement. Yeah, the statistically, if you ask a lawyer, how much does an average case cost? The average is really not like the number you want. and I apologize for getting into statistics here, but like it's sort of a power law distribution, because if most of the cases resolve through an agreement, the vast majority of the cases are going to be on like the low end of the range of costs, and then you have the lower percentage of cases that go all the way through a trial, and those cases are going to demonstrably push up that average. So I think maybe a better question to know before going through the divorce process is kind of what the median case value is. The median, like if there's 50 case values on this side and 50 case values on this side, what's that 50th, number? And that might be significantly lower than the average cost of a divorce case in that lawyer's experience, or in our experience rather. So that's going to give you a better sense of what your case is likely to cost when the average might not give you the information you're thinking of. Sorry to get so statistical there, but frankly, I think that's helpful to understand, and I've explained that to our clients on a number of occasions.